The issue of a possible military conflict in Taiwan has been the subject of heated debates among experts, analysts, and policymakers. On one hand, there are those who believe that a military conflict in Taiwan is inevitable, given the growing tensions between China and the United States. On the other hand, there are those who argue that such a conflict can be avoided through diplomacy and dialogue. In this editorial, we will examine these contradictory viewpoints and provide a final analysis on the possible military conflict in Taiwan. The case for a military conflict. Proponents of a military conflict in Taiwan argue that the current geopolitical landscape makes such a conflict inevitable. They point to China's increasing military assertiveness in the region and the United States' commitment to defending Taiwan as the primary reasons for a possible conflict. They argue that China sees Taiwan as a renegade province that must be brought back under its control, and that it will not hesitate to use force to achieve this goal. They also argue that the United States' continued support for Taiwan is viewed as a provocation by China, and that it may feel compelled to take action to defend its sovereignty. Furthermore, proponents of a military conflict argue that time is running out for Taiwan. China's military capabilities are rapidly advancing, and it may soon be in a position to launch a successful invasion of Taiwan. They argue that the longer Taiwan waits to resolve the issue peacefully, the greater the risk of a military conflict. The case against a military conflict. Opponents of a military conflict in Taiwan argue that such a conflict would have catastrophic consequences for the region and the world. They point to the fact that China is a nuclear power, and that any military conflict with it would risk a nuclear exchange. They also argue that a military conflict would destabilize the entire region, and that it would have far-reaching economic consequences. Furthermore, opponents of a military conflict argue that there are other ways to resolve the issue peacefully. They argue that dialogue and diplomacy are the best ways to resolve the issue, and that the international community should work to facilitate such dialogue. They also argue that the United States' commitment to defending Taiwan is a source of tension between the two countries, and that it should reconsider its stance to reduce the risk of a conflict. Final analysis. In our final analysis, we believe that a military conflict in Taiwan would have catastrophic consequences for the region and the world. While we acknowledge that there are concerns about China's military assertiveness and its commitment to reunifying Taiwan, we believe that dialogue and diplomacy are the best ways to resolve the issue peacefully. We also believe that the United States should reconsider its commitment to defending Taiwan. While we support the United States' commitment to promoting democracy and human rights around the world, we believe that its current stance on Taiwan is a source of tension between the two countries, and that it increases the risk of a military conflict. In conclusion, we urge all parties to work towards a peaceful resolution of the Taiwan issue. This will require dialogue, diplomacy, and a willingness to compromise. The risks of a military conflict are too great to ignore, and we must do everything we can to prevent it from happening.